Root Cause Medicine Video 2, Brain on Fire. What's actually happening inside your head? The information in this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please work with your own healthcare provider before making any changes to your health regimen. Last week, I told you something that I believe changes how you understand fibromyalgia, ME-CFS, and long COVID. These three conditions are not three different diseases. They are three expressions of the same root cause. At the center of the root cause is a fire in your brain that won't go out. Today, I want to show you exactly what that means, what actually is happening inside your head, and why understanding this one mechanism is the key to everything. I've been a naturopathic physician for 32 years. In that time, I've worked with hundreds of patients who came to me after years, sometimes decades, of being told their pain wasn't real. Their brain fog was anxiety, their exhaustion was depression, their suffering was in their head. Here's the bitter irony. Their suffering was in their head. It just wasn't imaginary. It was biological, it was measurable, and it had a name. Inside your brain, you have immune cells called microglia. Most people have never heard of them. They are key to understanding everything I'm going to talk about in this series. Microglia make up about 10 to 15% of all cells in your brain. Their job is to protect it. When bacteria or viruses get in, when there's an injury, a toxin, a threat, microglia activate. They release inflammatory chemicals, they clear out damaged cells, they signal the rest of the immune system. In a healthy brain, microglia do their job and then stand down. The threat resolves, the inflammation subsides, the microglia return to rest. That's a healthy cycle. Now here's what's happening in fibromyalgia, ME-CFS, and long COVID. The microglia never stand down. Something triggered them. A viral infection, a physical trauma, a period of extreme stress, years of gut dysfunction, accumulated toxic burden, and they got stuck in the on position. Chronically activated, constantly releasing inflammatory chemicals in the brain and nervous system. We call this microglial activation. And in 32 years of clinical practice, it's the most important concept I have ever worked with in these conditions. Here's why microglia activation explains every major symptom these patients experience. Let's start with the pain. Activated microglia release pro-inflammatory cytokines, chemical messengers that sensitize pain pathways. The brain starts amplifying every pain signal coming in. A light touch becomes burning. A cool breeze becomes an ache. A normal muscle contraction becomes agony. This is called central sensitization. It's not that something is wrong with the muscle or the joint. The pain processing system in the brain has been rewired by chronic microglial activation. The exhaustion, activated microglia triggers something called sickness behavior. You felt this before. When you have that flu, the heavy limbs, the inability to move, the need to lie down, that's sickness behavior. It's your brain's immune system telling you, shut down all non-essential activity. We have a threat to deal with. In these patients, that signal never turns off. The brain fog, when it comes to the brain fog, the microglia, when chronically activated, begin pruning synapses, the connections between your brain cells. They also disrupt the blood-brain barrier. The result is the cognitive dysfunction these patients describe, words disappearing mid-sentences, the inability to read a paragraph and retain it, walking into a room and having no idea why. This is not psychological, this is structural, neurological, measurable. Then there's the sleep disruption. Microglia regulate the sleep-wake cycle. Chronically activated microglia disrupt melatonin production and interfere with deep, slow-wave sleep, when the brain clears its own inflammatory waste. So, the neuroinflammation disrupts sleep, the poor sleep drives more neuroinflammation. Another vicious cycle. One fire, four symptoms. Pain, exhaustion, brain fog, broken sleep. All coming from the same source. For decades, conventional medicine said, we can't find anything wrong with these patients. Their scans are normal, their blood work is normal. Here's what they were missing. Standard MRI scans are not designed to detect neuroinflammation. When researchers started using PET scans with tracers that bind to activated microglia, the picture changed completely. A landmark study published in the Journal of Nuclear Medicine in 2014, led by Dr. Yasuhiro Nakatomi and colleagues in Japan, found widespread microglial activation in ME-CFS patients compared to healthy controls. The activated region included the cingulate cortex, hippocampus, amygdala, thalamus, midbrain, and pons. Every region associated with pain processing, cognition, mood, and fatigue. More recent COVID brain studies use advanced neuroimaging have found the same pattern, neuroinflammation in regions that match exactly what we've seen in fibromyalgia patients for 30 years. This is not a coincidence, this is the same mechanism. And finally, visible on a scan. When I look at this research, I feel something between vindication and frustration. Vindication because the clinical pattern I've been treating for decades is now confirmed in the literature. Frustration because these patients have been dismissed for 30 years while the tools to see what was happening were being developed in research labs. Understanding microglial activation only matters if we understand what triggers and sustains it. If we don't remove the drivers, the fire keeps burning no matter what else we do. The main drivers I see clinically are one, viral triggers, reactivated Epstein-Barr virus, HHV6, SARS-CoV-2. This is why so many of these patients can trace their illness to a specific infection. Long COVID is the clearest modern example, but the pattern is identical to post-viral ME-CFS that practitioners have documented since the 1980s. Gut dysfunction, a compromised gut lining, allows bacterial toxins called lipopolysaccharides to enter the bloodstream and cross the blood-brain barrier. LPS is one of the most potent activators of microglia known. You cannot fully calm the brain without addressing what's happening in the gut. That's why we have so many people struggling with food sensitivities worsened by all the chemical and genetic modification used in agriculture. I'll dedicate an entire video to this section. Then there's toxic burdens, heavy metals, environmental chemicals, mold toxins. These accumulate in the brain, directly activate microglia, further jamming or destroying integrity and mitochondrial function. Then there's the HPA dysregulation. HPA is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. When the stress response system breaks down, cortisol, which is one of the most powerful natural brakes on microglial activity, stops working properly. The fire loses its primary regulator. These drivers compound each other. That's why these conditions persist for years without resolution. So what actually calms microglial activation? I introduced 3 botanicals last week that form the foundation of what I call the Neuro-Calm protocol. Let me go a little deeper on the mechanism. BDMC, or bis-D-methoxycurcumin. This is the most important potent fraction of the curcumin plant, and it works through a pathway called NF-kappa B and MSK1, the master switch that tells the microglia to activate. BDMC directly inhibits that switch. Standard curcumin supplements are roughly 3% BDMC. Most of the curcumin you buy in the health food stores does not get you to the therapeutic dose of this fraction. Clinical formulations use a standardized 50% BDMC extract, which is why I specify BDMC 50 when I'm formulating. Second, Honokiol from the magnolia bark. Honokiol does something most botanical compounds cannot. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. That's not a major detail. Most anti-inflammatory supplements never make it into the brain. Honokiol does. Once there, it directly modulates microglial activation and also supports deep sleep architecture during which the glymphatic system clears inflammatory debris. It's one of the most clinically valuable compounds I've worked with in 32 years of practice. Thirdly, Andrographis paniculata. Andrographis works on two fronts. It rebalances the Th17 immune pathway, the overactive immune branch driving autoimmune inflammation and perpetuating microglial activation, and it directly inhibits the signaling pathways that microglia use to sustain their inflammatory state. Together, these three compounds attack microglial activation from multiple angles simultaneously. That's intentional. Single pathway intervention produces modest results. Multi-pathway interventions move the needle clinically. Your brain is not malfunctioning, your brain is fighting. It's been fighting without a break for months or years. The fire is real, the mechanism is measurable, the interventions are evidence-based. That is what conventional medicine has been missing, and this is what root cause medicine addresses. In future videos, we'll go deeper into something just as critical, immune dysregulation itself. Because the fire in the brain doesn't start in isolation, things like environmental toxins, chemical exposures, nutritional deficiencies place a chronic burden on the immune system, weakening its ability to respond appropriately and to protect you the way it should. A worn down immune system becomes both overactive and underprotective at the same time, unable to resolve real threats while fueling the inflammatory cascade that keep microglia locked in an activated state. Weakened immune regulation drives more inflammation drives further immune dysregulation. Another vicious cycle. This is why these conditions persist long after the initial trigger is gone, and why understanding it is what makes an effective, targeted naturopathic treatment plan possible. Next week, we'll go into the HPA axis, your body's stress command center. Because here's what most people don't realize, the HPA axis is the primary regulator of microglial activity. When it breaks down, and in every one of these patients it does break down, the fire in the brain loses its most important brake. Understanding the HPA axis explains why you can sleep for 9 hours and wake up exhausted than when you went to bed. Subscribe so you don't miss it. If this explains something you've been experiencing or something your doctor has never been able to explain, leave a comment below. I read everyone. And if you know someone who is suffering and still doesn't have answers, share this video. I'm Dr. Lorne Swetlikoff, ND. This is Root Cause Medicine.